Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Raquel. And today we are joined by a very special guest. Her name is Nicole Bitar. And I'm going to read you her bio because there's a lot here. I mean, this is a lot of juicy information, and Kara's awesome. And I don't want to leave anything out. So I'm just going to read it and then we'll get started. Nicole Bitar holds a Juris Doctor from Duke University School of Law and practiced high stakes corporate litigation at one of the largest law firms in the Southeast. While practicing law, she realized that despite having what is deemed a high level of success, many people were unhappy, stressed out, worn out, unhealthy, and lacking in a love and excitement for life. Kara now combines the dedication and commitment that it took to become a successful attorney, real-life training and what it takes to succeed at high levels, and extensive research, experience, and training in how to optimize our lives to help individuals excel in their professional and creative endeavors, be energized and excited about life, and experience their full potential. She does this through optimization programs she developed, coaching, and teaching Kundalini Yoga. Kara is a KRI certified instructor of Kundalini Yoga, Reiki Master, certified ThetaHealing practitioner, and certified SoulRealignment practitioner. That is a whole mouthful. Thank you, Kara, for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome.
Well, I think your story is complex and amazing, but I think what our listeners would love to hear is sort of from you, how did this all happen?
Yeah, so I basically planned my whole life to become an attorney. Like when I was in 5th grade, I would like walk around with like the Harvard Law sweatshirts on. From a very young age, I was working towards that goal. I graduated like highest honors from high school, and then I went on to college. I graduated summa cum laude, and then I went on to Duke Law on a scholarship. I published both at Duke Law. I published as an undergrad, and then I was recruited by, and I went on to work for one of the largest law firms in the Southeast. In that practice, I was a litigator, so that's what I did. I was corporate litigator. You know, people might have different kind of ideas about what it means to be at a corporate law firm. And, you know, corporate law firms, they do make a lot of money. And one of the things that our law firm did was it put a lot of that money back into the community. So even though I was doing this like corporate litigation, I was also working with victims of domestic violence. That was like a pro bono work that I did. And I did quite a bit of it. And I was eventually named the head of our firm's pro bono domestic violence project, which was a pretty big project. I spent my life planning and preparing for this, and now I'm working at this firm, and I'm doing significant legal work, plus I'm also doing this other work that I would say is pretty like meaningful work. And I felt really appreciated and respected by my colleagues. I really liked them. I really cared about them. And again, like people have these kind of concepts of corporate law or these like big buildings you see, those are people in there. Do you know what I mean? They're people. And I really liked the people that I worked with. So I'm doing all this work, and I'm making all this money, and on paper my life looks perfect. I mean, I had like this great job, I had this great resume, I had this like cute little home next to like in the city, and I'm making all this money, and I have all these beautiful clothes, and you know, it's like I'm looking at my life on paper, and it's like I had everything I thought I wanted. Mm-hmm. But yet I would say deeply unhappy. It was kind of confusing in a sense. How can I be so deeply unhappy when I have everything that I thought I wanted? And when I have everything that most people think or that our society like deems as like success and important, and it's like the things that will make you happy. Like I had them all. All the trappings. I had like everything. And so I kept, even though I was deeply unhappy, I kept telling myself like, no, I should be happy. Like, look at my life. Like I should be happy, but like I wasn't. I tried so hard to make myself happy. And I tried so hard to it's not like I really like tried to make the job work in a sense, because like I was having success at that job. It was just, I wasn't happy in it. So I kept trying to somehow make myself happy in it. It was like I couldn't.
What did deeply unhappy feel like in your body?
So it felt like a combination of like emptiness and numbness.
Mhm.
And it was like I'd go home at night and I would just like, I'd either like go for a walk in the dark by myself or I'd like lay on the floor and cry. But it was like, it didn't help. It was like this kind of like this bottomless pit of, I just feel unhappy. And I feel kind of like, it felt kind of numb and kind of just like empty. And it was just like, is this what life is?
Yeah. Is
You
this
know what
all
I mean?
there is?
Is this all there is?
Yeah.
And it's like, it just felt so, it felt so empty to me. And it was like, even though I had all this stuff that it was like people would say would make you feel fulfilled, I did not feel fulfilled. And even though I was doing this work, it was so interesting, like with the domestic violence work, like the clients would be so appreciative. And I just feels like I felt nothing. Like, oh, thank you so much. I'd have this moment of, oh, and then it would just go. You know what I mean? Or like we'd win a big case and I'd have this moment of like, oh, wow. And then it would just go.
Did you almost feel guilty in a way? Like, oh my God, I should feel so great about all these things. These are things that so many people would literally fight for.
I think there was some guilt. And it was like, what's wrong with me?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's something wrong with me. Like, this is a problem with me. I have like, you know what I mean? Like, I should be happy and I'm not. I get to go to, I get to I mean, the job was high pressure and high stress, but it was still a really good job. And it was like, I make all this money and I'm doing all this stuff. And yeah, it was confusing, quite frankly.
I think it's really interesting that you talk about knowing that you wanted to be this lawyer when you were in, you said 5th grade. How did you know? What was, because I didn't experience that in life. I still half the time don't know what I want to be in life. How did you know?
So I didn't actually know. I know that now. Do you know what I mean? So at the time, I thought I wanted to be an attorney and I was like laser focused on that. And at the time and growing up and going through high school and college and law school, I could have given you outstanding reasons as to why I wanted to be an attorney. What I now know, now that I've really kind of had this, time to like reflect on this and understand myself more, what I now know is that I felt like I had no worth and value innately. And so in the child's mind of me feeling completely worthless, like I have no value, I have no worth in and of myself, I have to become something, I have to make myself something, I have to prove my worth and my value. So I grew up in a small town, and in my mind, and from what I saw, there were like 2 noble professions in the world. One was a doctor and one was a lawyer. So I chose lawyer. So, did I like know that I wanted to be an attorney? I would say I thought I knew I wanted to be an attorney, but it was coming from a place of like lack. It wasn't coming from a truthful place.
Once you realize, okay, I got everything, should be making me feel happy, but instead I'm feeling sort of empty. How did you begin to unravel from that world?
Yeah, so I mean, I tried while I was working, seeing different healers and reading and researching as much as I could. My job was pretty all consuming, and it was like nothing I did was helping me. I mean, I thought this for a while, but I just didn't have the guts to do it. Like finally I was just like, something has to give, something has to change. My job was the biggest thing in my life. As much as, again, I've said all these like good things about this job, it was really high pressure. It was really high stress, right? So it was like part of me was like, I think this job needs to go. It's the stress, it's the pressure, but it was a confused state. It was like this back and forth of, no, this is a great job. And like other people can do this. Like you can do it. Just, it's not that, like it's not that hard, or it's not, you know what I mean? Like just, so it's not like I had this great clarity while I was working, but what I eventually did, and it took me years, but what I eventually did was I did leave that job. But again, it wasn't like I had this great, I'm going to leave this job and this is what I'm going to do. And I just know this is the thing to do. Like not at all. I was like scared out of my mind. I was really unhappy. Nothing was working. Nothing was making me happy. And it was just like there was this part of me that was just like, the job something has to change and the job's the biggest thing in your life. But it was like the scariest thing to do that because I was making all this money. Why would you ever walk away from that? And the thing too, the other thing that was going on in my mind was, it was like, there was this part of me that was like, if you just go to a different job, it's going to be different faces, different places, but you're going to feel the same. What I ended up doing was I did something that, quite frankly, I don't know if anybody at that firm has ever done. I left that job and I left it without any sort of plan. So what happens when you work at these big law firms, they're so well connected. If you want to get another job somewhere else, they'll help you get one.
Right.
Because, I mean, there is turnover at these firms because it's kind of rough in a sense, I mean, it's good, but you have to be able to kind of handle it. And sometimes people are just like, they decide to leave. And so the firm will help them get another job. Or what people will do is if they don't look to the firm to help them to get another job, they'll just get another job, even like well before they leave, because they've got this great resume. So I there was this part of me that was like, that's not the solution. I need answers about life. Like I need answers about myself. And so leaving for me was just hard because I did not know what my future was going to hold when my whole life I had this plan. And now it was like I was going to have no plan.
When you said you were leaving, what's the first thing you did?
You mean when I told them I was leaving?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, nothing significant. I just remember like the day I put in my notice. I remember what I was wearing. I remember sitting in my office thinking, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And I remember getting up finally and walking down the hall to the partner's office, and it felt out of body. Like, this is insane. You know what I mean? Like, like it just felt out of body. Like it was like I was watching myself do it. And so after I did it, it was just like, it's almost like it doesn't even seem real.
So when you left and you embarked on the journey to figure out what you wanted to do, what did you do at that point? What was the process of then trying to figure out what it was that was going to make you happy, or trying to get to know yourself enough to figure out what was going to make you happy?
So again, I'm in this kind of, it's not like I have this great mental clarity, right? So there's this part of me that was like, give me, like there was this part of me that was petrified. Like if I don't do this, what in the world would I do? Like this is what I know.
Like, oh my God, I'm going to end up living in a van.
Yes.
Under a bridge by the river.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, and it's like, yeah. And also too, it's just like, I don't have any, like this concept of like having your own kind of creative expressions or passion in the world, or like, I had none of that. Like this was this kind of plan that I had. Like, it's like, what do you like to do? That was not something that I was entertaining. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I leave this job, so part of me is like, if I leave this job, I'm going to have nothing to do. And the other part, there's this other part of me though, that was like, give me 2 weeks away from this high pressure, high stress environment and I'll figure something out. The 2-week thing, let me tell you, that did not happen at all. I realized that my body was really not in good health, like not in a good state. So basically what happened was I went from operating at this super high level to leaving the job and feeling like I couldn't even drive anywhere. That's how bad my body felt. Yeah. And so it was like, basically what I realized is like I had been operating on adrenaline probably most of my life. Like what drove me was like the stress of having to do something. That's what gave me energy. I wasn't coming from a place of I'm energized by life. I'm energized by the passion and creativity that I hold. Instead, it was like, it was this push, this constant push. So when that push ended, it was like my body just like, it was just like it ached everywhere. I was so tired. It's like I felt like I couldn't do anything. On top of that, something else happened that really surprised me, which was you would think that having done all of those things, even though I wasn't currently doing it, I had done it all. So you'd think that I could have some level of self-value, like feel some level of self-value or worth. Because I knew I could do it. I did it. I still had the resume, but what happened was when that job went away, it was like every shred of what I thought was self-worth and value, it just went right with it. I felt absolutely terrible about myself. Like it didn't matter that I had done all of that stuff that I had accomplished. It's like none of it mattered. I felt just absolutely horrible about myself. Once I realized like these kind of two things were happening, then I was like, okay, I'm going to give everything I have, my resources, my time, everything. I'm going to give everything I have to finding answers. I'm going to give everything I have to bringing my body back to a state of health. That's what I did. I made that like my full-time job. Like reading, researching, experimenting, trying and training in different modalities, seeing different healers, seeing different practitioners, trying all sorts of things like saunas and floats and colonics and cleanses. And I really, when I tried things, I really gave them like a good go. Like I researched them beforehand and then I really tried them. I wasn't just jumping from one thing to the next because I wanted to see if it worked. And also too, I had a very open mind in approaching these things. Like I didn't discount things because they might have seemed different or weird. I was only looking for results. This is all I cared about. That's what I did. That's what I made like my full-time job, basically.
It sounds like you were really drawn to sort of the all natural world and some of the holistic principles. Did you have anyone who helped guide you through that, or were you researching completely on your own?
I was really doing it on my own. I did take a number of courses from people. So people would offer different courses on kind of different things, whether it be like manifestation or whatever. I would take their courses to try to kind of learn from that and see where that would take me. And then I did when I was, training to be a practitioner in different things. Obviously, I got to work with the teachers and those kind of modalities. But it's not like I had, and I think it would have been really helpful if I did have, it's not like I had someone who was really just that, like really there for me, really kind of helping guide me through this. I simply didn't have that.
What do you think it was in your body that needed healing?
Well, there were so many things. I had adrenal fatigue, I think, for sure. I know now that I had a very imbalanced nervous system. Yeah, I didn't realize the importance of our nervous system. I didn't realize like the importance of balancing that and strengthening that. I think my endocrine system too generally was really out of balance and really suffering. But I think too one of the other thing was just my mentally and emotionally, I was not in a good place. Mm-hmm. It's like I had all this kind of suppressed emotion. I was controlled by my thoughts of fear, thoughts of worry, thoughts of I'm not good enough. So it was like all of these things coming together, creating the state that I was in. And it was like they were amplified in the absence of my job. Because mm-hmm. It's like I wasn't just pushing myself. I like had these moments to stop and like let myself see like what's actually happening. And that's the thing too, like within this kind of experience that we're in, people love to be like, say how busy they are. And it's a great thing, but you can actually use it to numb out in some ways. Like you don't want to face what's actually happening. And that's so like my job and my kind of push to be a lawyer, push in the job. It was like kind of numbing me out in a sense to what was really going on with me.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate distraction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've talked about that on episodes in regards to what our therapists have told us about that. Like the overachiever and why are you working so hard and why is every moment of your life scheduled?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny. I also went to law school, not with the intention of ever practicing. So that's interesting. I'm sure that's a whole other therapy session. Because I kind of had the whole idea too, like my whole life I wanted to be a doctor, right? So growing up, everybody's like, Raquel's gonna be the doctor, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a doctor, this is gonna be great, right? I go to college, I'm taking all the courses, and I thought, yeah, this isn't right, this isn't what I want to do. And so I thought, okay, I'll be a lawyer, right? So kind of the same thing. I had a plan. You go to undergrad, you go to whatever the next phase is, and it was always going to be school of some sort, right? Yep. I went to law school and then I was like, yep, after law school, I'll get whatever great job and then, plan. But I was like, no, I'm not going to be a practicing attorney. There's other ways I can use the degree, blah, blah, blah. I worked in law firms. I worked in legal recruiting for a number of years. So I saw what you're talking about, but from the other side. I would see new lawyers come in and literally within like 6 months to a year, they just didn't even look like the same person. And I would
Oh.
see like the joy just sort of seep out of their faces. And it just made me so sad. When I left all of that, I sort of had the same situation that you did of, well, what do I do now? Who am I without this job? Because I identified with, well, this is what I do. It was a whole lot of like, well, now what? I completely understand everything that you're talking about. And I think it's incredibly brave. First of all, that you listen to your body and you listen to that voice that was telling you something's not right. It was incredibly brave of you to listen to it and pay attention to it. And then to make that jump, to do that, and then to put all that energy into, well, you know what? Now I'm going to figure it out.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, now I see that, I see clear now what I was doing and that it was something courageous to do. But at the time, I felt like a complete failure when I was doing it. Yeah. And so interesting too that you have seen some of the law profession, got some glimpse into that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, for me, it just wasn't the right fit.
That's the key. And that's the key. Like, I worked with people who I know that was a good fit for them.
Mhm.
They thrived in that environment. I was not one of those people. And so I think there was a part of me that thought that the issue in my life was the job. Like, the job was not the issue. Like, that was not the issue in my life. It was not the job. It was a lack of me really understanding myself, who I was, and what my creative expressions in the world were and how I functioned.
When did you have your breakthrough to, oh, this is my creative expression?
Yeah, so so if I thought that I had been surprised by things after I left my job, I was in for even more surprises because I dedicated myself to this finding answers probably about a year and a half. I did this for a year and a half full time. This is all I did. I didn't do anything else. And I really did. I get what it means to like basically work all the time, kind of thing. I really kind of did that. So after a year and a half, I would say my health was worse.
Oh,
And I felt worse. It was like the longer I stayed away from it, the harder it was. But at the same time, like I wasn't getting the answers and the solutions. So it was just like, felt like I'm doing all this stuff and my body's not getting better and I'm not getting better. And it really was, I would say, one of the darkest moments of my life because it was like there was this part of me when I was working that was like, there's something different. I didn't know for sure, but I had this hope that there's life can be different and I could have a different experience. But after almost a year and a half of doing this full time, I really started to have this like, oh my goodness, like this is all that life is. Like, it's not that great. I remember this conversation with one of my colleagues when I was working. I was asking him, I was like, so are you like excited to get up in the morning? Do you feel like really passionate about life? Are you really like into this job? And he was just like, no. He's like, listen, we have it better than most. We make a lot of money. It's not great. Like, I can't wait till I'm done working or I can't wait till I get a break or whatever, which quite frankly, we didn't even get that much. It's just like, that's just what life is. Like, it's just what it is. And it was like, I just remember that conversation so vividly because it was like, it sucked the life out of me. It was like, no. I mean, and this guy, he went to Harvard. So it's like, I'm with these people who they have like such a high bar in terms of like the schools they go to and the accolades that they get and their performance. And then it's like this super low bar in terms of how they actually feel and how life feels to them, So after that year and a half, I was like, oh my goodness, like what I'm searching for, like it doesn't exist. Like life is like, it's all right. You have moments of joy. I had moments of joy when I was an attorney. It's not like I was just miserable all the time. It's like life is this, like you get a moment of joy here or there and then it's really hard otherwise. And you sacrifice and you grind and it's monotonous and,
that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like, well, you work and then you die.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And it's like you're just trying to like get through.
Then meanwhile, your life is just passing you by with no meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
What turned it around for you though?
One day I turned on a Kundalini Yoga class and I didn't know what Kundalini Yoga was. I had done yoga for years. I wasn't familiar with Kundalini Yoga. And so there's a couple things though too before I even get to that point. So even though I was at that dark moment, I could have gone back to practice law. I was like a year and a half removed. Like, it's not that bad. Like, I could have done it. But there was this part of me that was like, keep going. Like, keep going. Don't give up. And so that I did keep going. And it was then that eventually, like, I turned on this Kundalini Yoga class. And the class seemed, quite frankly, it just seemed really odd to me. Like, it was really odd. And I was just like, whatever, I'm game. Like, I'll try anything. If it works, like, I'll try it. And so after that one class, I felt different. I felt like lighter.
Mm-hmm.
I felt more energized. I felt like clearer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept then taking these classes. And the more I took them, the better I started to feel. And it was like the aches and pains in my body started to go away. I started to feel more and more energized. I started to feel inspired. And the other thing that happened that I totally wasn't expecting was that I actually started to feel this innate sense of like value and worthiness.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, what was weird about the class? Like, what they do in it? Do they do like weird breathing techniques? And what was weird about it?
Yeah, they definitely did. They did a lot of different weird breathing techniques.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, we had our hands and our feet on the ground, but like our butts kind of up in the air, and we were like jumping up and down in one of them, like kind of like you're like a, I don't know what, like an animal or something. We were like on this one, we were like laying on our stomach, like with our legs up, like rocking back and forth. And we were breathing in this kind of way that made you kind of sound like a duck. And then at the end of it, we like meditated, but we didn't just meditate. We meditated while we held a piece of fruit. I mean, this was like,
wow.
What is happening?
I haven't done that before.
Yeah. It's like, what is happening here? But so, I mean, so it did seem, it seemed quite different to me. Not that happens in every Kundalini Yoga class. It certainly doesn't. Like I've never had another class where we meditated on a piece of fruit. It was like a profound experience for me.
My mom has this thing that she's been saying since I was a kid, because I'm always like, Mom, you're so weird. She always said, weird is a spiritual term. That's what she always said to me in answer to that. Weird is a spiritual term.
Interesting.
It doesn't surprise me that you went into that class and it felt sort of different or weird, but what you found in there was liberating to some extent.
It was for sure. And so I did go on to train in it, not because I thought I would teach it necessarily. It was just that was kind of what I was doing. I was trying to find answers. And it was like, but what is this thing that's really having this impact on me? Why is it having this impact? And so that's why I went to train in it. And as I trained in it, I started to understand more and more. Like, I don't think we fully understand, quite frankly, why Kundalini Yoga is so effective. I think we're actually catching up with kind of the yogis. Modern science is catching up with them in a way. But at the same time, I did start to gain an understanding of why this was having the impact on me that it was in fact having.
Why was it having an impact on you?
So Kundalini Yoga, it's really addressing, so we're complex and dynamic beings, and it's really addressing us as complex and dynamic beings. So what it's doing is, so it works the physical body, and it works in particular critical systems of the physical body, like the nervous system and the endocrine system. And so that alone was game changing for me, to work my nervous system and my endocrine system. It also works the circulatory system, the immune system, other systems of the body. It works the mind. So it's helping you to control and direct your mind. It's helping you get rid of old subconscious beliefs and thoughts. And so it's giving you this level of control over the mind and this different relationship with the mind, as opposed to the mind kind of like running you and controlling you. So it's working also you from an energetic level. So it's working with the chakra system. It's working with the energy channels in the body. It's working with like the aura or the electromagnetic field. And in the yogic sciences, you actually have 10 bodies. It's working all 10 of those bodies. So like we're more than just the physical body. And it's also working from an emotional level. So like before I started to do Kundalini Yoga, I remember seeing one of these practitioners, and he was like, you know what your problem is? He was like, you're angry. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, no, I might be sad. I might be like, maybe I'm like, sad, but I'm not like this angry. I thought anger is this kind of like harsh and mean thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm definitely not angry. And he just like sat there and looked at me, and I looked at him. And then finally I was like, if I did have that anger, I wouldn't know what to do with it. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yep.
We've talked about this before, for sure.
Yeah. And so he was like, this is what you need to do. Go home and like smash these things and like scream into a pillow. And I did that, but it didn't move the dial for me. It didn't change it. It didn't make me feel better. Kundalini Yoga, that changed it. Like hardcore, clear change. Like it works on the emotions to help you release suppressed emotions and to help you deal with current emotions. And so in Kundalini Yoga, it uses physical postures and poses. It also uses a lot of different breathing techniques. And so it uses postures and poses. And some of the postures and poses maybe you would recognize from like in the studios, but the postures and poses do look different from what kind of like you might be used to seeing. Also uses hand positions so that the hands, the fingers are connected to different parts of the brain. It uses eye positions. The eyes, again, like we're using these positions to affect different parts of the brain. Also, with the eye position, we can stimulate the glandular system. Like we can stimulate the pituitary gland just with our eye position.
Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then it uses meditation and relaxation. And so it's using all of these things together, which does make the practice look different from what what we might typically associate with yoga. It's using sound. So it uses mantra, it uses the science of sound or the science of nod to like basically bring us into different frequencies. And it has a number of different mantras that it uses, and they do different things. And then what Kundalini Yoga does is it combines like the postures and the poses with like a certain mantra, with a certain hand position, with a certain eye position to create a certain result. It's almost like it's putting together like this recipe, and then we get this certain result. And so I would say it like offers a lot of bang for the buck, so to speak, which I think is why I was getting such a result from it. It's like I'm taking, I take a class and I like get a result. It's like, well, it's doing so much at one time.
This is fascinating.
Very. It sounds almost too difficult to do, but what I really wondered, you said it's connected with these 10 different systems, emotions being one of them. Brene Brown recently said that the average human only can relate to 3 emotions. Did you feel like once you started doing the Kundalini Yoga that you had a bigger access to more emotions within yourself?
Oh, that's interesting. That's not something I really thought about. I think there's probably, if I would give that more thought or think about that more, understand that better, my guess would be I'd probably say yes, because it really did just change. I did change so much.
Maybe a simpler way to identify, and I don't know if this is true for you or not, but when your previous person told you had that anger and you were like, no, I'm sort of detached from that, which Raquel and I have both also experienced. When you did start doing the yoga, did you get more in touch with these emotions like anger? Easy to see sadness sometimes, not so easy for women to see anger. Did you get more in touch with that?
Yes, for sure. 100%. Yes, yes, as you've phrased it that way, put the question, yes, absolutely.
And
yes.
then did you feel like, did the emotion come out on the mat? Did you cry on the mat?
I have.
Yeah.
I definitely have, but it's a lot coming out through the breath. So there's this practice called fists of anger. This practice is, oh my gosh, this is like a life-changing practice. And this is an interesting thing about Kundalini Yoga. So going to a class is wonderful. I highly recommend it. But once you start to go to the classes too, you learn practices. Like the fists of anger takes about 3 minutes. And so you learn these practices that you can just kind of pull out as needed. There's practices for like if you're feeling like emotional, like if you're feeling emotionally unstable, if you're feeling like there's a meditation for it's like when you don't know what else to do. And it will help bring you back into a state of like I can handle whatever I'm facing. There's a meditation if you're feeling blocked. Again, it takes 3 minutes. And so fists of anger is actually this practice that it helps you get rid of this suppressed anger. it's a movement, and it's also very strong breathing. And it's so fascinating because when you start to do this particular practice, it's like you think almost like you're having this, like you're physically challenged in doing it. You might think, oh, I'm physically challenged in doing this, I'm not in shape. It's not that. You're literally feeling the anger. And what happens, the more you do it, you'll feel it change. It's so, yeah, it's like you can feel it in like your field, almost like you can feel it changing, and the practice will feel different to you. And the interesting thing too with Kundalini Yoga is when we start to do, like, we release a lot using it's like a combination of things, but you can really feel it through the breath. So like, for instance, you might start a breathing practice, and this happened to me so many times. I would start a breathing practice and be like, oh my goodness, I cannot do this. I'm never going to last. It gets easier because you'll feel that release.
I'm really interested in how all of this change that you were feeling and that you were experiencing through Kundalini Yoga, and how that was starting to become expressed in the rest of your life. How did it get you to knowing who you were?
Yeah, so I love this question. What ultimately Kundalini Yoga is doing, it's tapping you into you. That's what it's doing. It's tapping you into the creativity that you hold. It's tapping you into the love that you are. It was like I was doing Kundalini Yoga, and as I started to do it, it was like I started to, like I said this before, feel inspired. I started to feel an internal sense of worthiness. And I started to feel like this creativity. As I was doing Kundalini Yoga more and more, it was like I started to have this clarity of like, okay, all of these things that I did that didn't work, like, why didn't they work? What would work? Like, what would work? Like, what would really move the dial for me? What would really change things? If this didn't work, what would work? It was like I just started to like see things, and things started to become clear to me. And I started to have all these like ideas of like, okay, try this, do this, do this. And it wasn't from something that I was like a modality or something that I studied. It was really coming from like me. So then I started to like try these things and experiment with these things and do these things that like kind of were coming to me or that I came up with. And then my life transformed even more. So it was like Kundalini Yoga was this major turning point for me that then like almost like it like put me on this path, like kind of catapulted me away in a way to like my own creative expressions in the world.
And your own creative expressions, is that the optimization coach?
Yeah.
That comes into play?
Yeah, that's where that comes into play. And so it was like I started to get all this clarity. I started like things started to make sense to me, and my life started to change even more. And I wrote these 2 programs. One's called The Foundation, one is called Thoughts. And also too, it like became so clear to me, like, okay, how do I help other people so that they can like live this very different life, this life where they are just expressing their own creativity, where they are in states of abundance, where they are knowing the love and value that they hold. Because too, the thing too that was kind of the driving force of this too, it was my own experience, but it was also, I worked in this law firm with these people who had worked so hard and who were so disciplined and who were so driven and who were so smart. And listen, like, I know that's not just the people at the firm. Like, that's people generally. Those were just the people I was with. And to me, it was just such a travesty that so many of them weren't happy or were living their lives in states of stress, in states of worry, in states of overwhelm, in states of monotony, right? It's like, that's such a travesty. And so that was really too this driving force. And so how can I like help these people like so that they can live a different experience? Because now I know it's possible. And how can I do it in a way that's effective and efficient? Because I understand, like, one of the things that I dealt with is that like a lot of kind of the things that I studied and the people that I worked with, the solutions or whatever that they gave, I'm like, this is like, I can do this because I'm doing this full time. But this is highly unrealistic for pretty much everybody else. Like, you don't want to spend your life like healing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to spend your life living. And so one of the things that for me was like, well, how do I do this in a way? Like, how can this be so that people can get these understandings and live and get them too in an efficient and effective way, so that like if I was practicing law, I could do that. not everyone's going to like leave their job, nor quite frankly am I like recommending that. It was like I had these things that I really wanted for myself and I really wanted for other people. And then it started to become clear to me, well, how do I do this? And how can we move the dial? And also too, like you had asked the question of, did you have someone who was really helping you through that time? And I really didn't. I didn't have someone who was really there for me. And the other thing for me was like, how can this be structured so that someone really has someone who's like, I'm there for you. And they're not just doing it all themselves because you flounder a lot when you're doing things yourself. Because like for me, like a lot of things, like my issues, I didn't see what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took me a really long time, and it took me a lot of pain and suffering and all the things. And so now I really believe that like my mission in life, like the thing, like my creative expressions in life, and we don't just have one, but really is kind of taking these skills too that I learned as an attorney, because one of the things I had to do as an attorney is be really effective and efficient. And I had to be really like clear, and I also had to get results. And so I kind of took all of those skills and kind of put them into how can I now help other people so that they can live the experience that I know that they can live. I know they can. Like if I can, my life has transformed. My body has transformed. My relationship with my mind has transformed. My relationship with my family and my husband has transformed. Like I know people can transform their lives and live lives that they truly love. And the thing is like, we're all unique beings. Like here in this time, in this moment, in this experience, and like this isn't going to be again. Like this is it, and like this is you, and like this is the time, and like people really can revel in themselves, like their own creativity, like the love that they are. Like they can, it's not always like we're so external focused, like what do other people think about you? You can revel in yourself. And it's like, I want that for people because I know they can have it.
So this is a really good time to ask, what do you offer for other people?
So I do teach Kundalini Yoga. That is something that you can join a class. I live stream classes. I do them twice a week, and I provide the recordings of the class. And I do use Kundalini Yoga in my programs and my coaching. So I have two programs. One's called The Foundation and one is called Thoughts. These are 12-week programs. And in the programs, I offer, you get a series of recordings. So you get like 12 weeks of recordings where I basically lay out what I would say is like the methodology for an optimized life in a sense. And so in the foundation is a deep dive into you. It's really you understanding you, who you are, and how you function. And Thoughts is really understanding your mind and how to control and direct the mind and use it to serve you in profound ways. Like we do have these concepts of like, oh, the mind is just off there doing these things. It's such a pain. No, it isn't. You can harness that power and use it to serve you. And so we start with the foundation and then move on to Thoughts. And so the foundation, they both have recorded information, one-on-one sessions with me. You get the Kundalini Yoga membership, but if you can't come to the classes, like I offer recordings. I want to make it really flexible, but even if you don't do the classes, what I do is I customize it to the person. So if there's something that will benefit them, I'll just be like, here, do this and, do that. And I also offer, in each program, you get a reading. So these were these really interesting readings that I came across, and I was blown away by the accuracy of these and blown away by how much they moved the dial for me. And so now I do these readings as part of the programs. And the first reading, you get detailed information about what your gifts and talents are and how you're uniquely structured to thrive in the world. And then in the second reading, it goes into what commonly happens. People is like, it's like they keep experiencing the same thing over and over again. It's like they'll have their own kind of thing that they keep experiencing. Like someone else, it may not be their thing, but it's. And so the second reading looks at, why are you experiencing these things over and over again? And what can you do to make a change? Now, the readings there's quite a bit of detail in the readings. Like the one reading also contains like, what's your soul vibration rate? And it can even pick up if you have implants in the body that aren't aligned with you and how to like energetically align them. So they're kind of cool readings. And then we use the readings throughout the program. And I do the readings separately for people if they want them. Basically in the programs, they're pretty comprehensive, because I really wanted to like, what's really, really going to move the dial for people? What's really going to bring transformation?
What are the readings based on? Are they like tarot cards or?
They actually, it's a reading of the Akashic Record.
What does that mean?
I've heard a little bit about that, but yeah, if you could go into that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I first learned about the Akashic Records actually from Kundalini Yoga. And so I was then fascinated when I like learned about these readings. So basically what it is every soul or every being, they have a record. So we exist in the third dimension, which is like the physical dimension. We're multidimensional beings, but like this physical dimension is the third dimension. But we're actually multidimensional beings. We actually exist on multiple dimensions.
Mhm.
And so the Akashic Records are in a different dimension than the physical dimension. But we can learn how to access and read these records.
Are they based on our birthday, our time of birth?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It would be like, so if someone wanted a reading, I would need their name, their birth date, and their place of birth. That's like them giving their permission, because you can't access someone else's record without their permission.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And then that helps you access the person in the record. And so it might sound kind of different or kind of out there to some people, but once you get a reading, the accuracy and then how that benefits you moving forward, it's kind of like the proof is in the pudding. I was blown away by when I got a reading. I was so blown away by it that then I went and trained in how to do it myself, because I thought, oh, this is like, this fits so, like, this is so that's such a perfect fit to the other things that I'm doing. And again, it's something that I tried a lot of things that didn't move the dial for me, and this is something that really moves the dial, because you get all of this information about yourself, and then you have it for the rest of your life. And it's not that you don't know this about yourself. Like you deep down, you know it. We hide ourselves from ourselves. That's really the terminology I like to use. Like we hide ourselves from ourselves. Because I love giving them to people, because afterwards, a lot of times, like, I feel so free now.
I think that's interesting, Raquel, because we often on this podcast several times, we've come across things with ourselves or guests where we've uncovered a pattern. This has been a pattern in my life. This has been something I keep doing. And then I'm sort of like, why do I keep doing that? Right?
Yeah.
This could be a really interesting way, this combined with therapy and self-reflection. Why am I recreating this pattern? I think I'm seriously interested in this.
Same.
Yeah. It's what I can speak to is like, these really move the dial for me, and they still do. They still do. Because even now, like if maybe something isn't happening that I'm like wanting or whatever, I can be like, okay, well, how am I structured to thrive in this experience? Like, am I being in alignment with my gifts here? How am I structured to thrive in this experience? Am I actually like following that kind of that structure? Yeah. And in terms of like repeating patterns over and over again, it's actually karma based. And so people have this concept like, oh, karma is such a bitch. Like, it really isn't. We want karma, because what the law of karma is, it's basically this. When you take actions that are in alignment with the truth of who you are, you get a result that feels good to you. When you take actions that are out of alignment with the truth of who you are, you get a result that feels bad to you. That's all karma is. And so, but what the readings go into is like, what actions do you keep taking over and over again that are not in the truth of who you are? Because if you keep taking those actions over and over again, you're going to keep getting a result that feels bad to you. If you take different actions that are in alignment with the truth of who you are, you're going to get a different result. You're going to get a result that feels good to you. The thing is, though, is like with these kind of, we could call them a karmic pattern. So Kundalini Yoga actually works on karma, but these karmic patterns, basically what happens is we kind of been repeating them for lifetimes. What can be with it is like when I first kind of found out some of mine, I was like, it's like they feel so normal to you that you don't realize you're doing them.
Yeah.
Then when you see it, you're like, oh my goodness, this isn't normal. I'm just so used to this that I keep doing it. And so the reading goes into karmic patterns, both from this lifetime and other lifetimes. And so that's a whole different kind of conversation. But I have to say myself, I really was like on the fence about the whole past life thing. It just didn't, entirely make sense to me. It seemed kind of unfair. But what these readings do is, even if you don't believe in the past life thing, people still relate to those patterns, and you can still change those patterns, whether you believe in the past life thing or not. They'll see them in their current life. In those readings, we do a clearing in the record, and we can't clear the record without you knowing what's in it, because ultimately you're completely in control of that record. No one else can do anything to it. So that's why we kind of go into that.
You are glowing right now, Kara, talking about this. Your face is just lit up like 1,000% talking about this.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It really is. And it really gives results. And I just, coming from the place that I came from, I feel like I've kind of lived 2 lifetimes in this life, so vastly different. And I'm just, yeah, it's just so great that we can have such a different experience, and that there are things to help us do that.
I've always thought karma was like, if you did a bad action to someone or you hurt someone somehow, then that was going to come back on you threefold or something like that. That was always my kind of understanding of what karma was. And you're saying that's not really it.
Yeah, no, it's actually, I would say that's a misunderstanding of karma. And I also say the good and bad is also, we live on what's called a polarity planet. It's not that there are things that are good or they're bad. They're just different polarities. It's really a question of, are you being in the truth of who you are or not? Like, what polarity, like, you have a polarity. We all have polarities. And that's something we get into with the readings. Like, even with our gifts, there's a polarity of your gifts. So you can basically express your gifts in a way that's really going to like benefit you and benefit the world. You can take the same gifts and express them in the opposite way, in the polarity of that, in a way that's going to basically bring harm to you or do things that don't feel good to you and to the world. And so it's really more about it being a polarity planet than good or bad. And the polarities aren't like, when I say polarity planet, it's like light, dark, pleasure, pain. It's not that one polarity is bad and one is good. They're just, everybody had, like, we're on a polarity planet and you have polarities. And if you want to choose to live a life where you're living completely outside of the truth of who you are and feeling bad all the time, you totally get to choose that, totally in your power. But you don't have to choose it. You can choose the other polarity. And so it's really just, it's a matter of understanding the polarities and then how karma works with, it's like the law of karma is working within that. So it's not like, oh, I did this thing to somebody and how, it's like, well, if you did something,
it's gonna get me.
Now it's going to get you. But if you did something that you would say would be, so like you're love through and through, right? And so if you do something to somebody that is not love through and through, that's you not acting in the truth of who you are. And so that's going to impact you. It's not so much the impact on them as much as the impact on you. Like now you're in your polarity. Your result then from that is going to be something that doesn't feel good to you.
Yeah. That makes total sense now that you put it.
It's so interesting, Kara, that you talk about that we are love, essentially. It's a matter of acknowledging that and getting back to it and then expressing that in a way that's in line with who we are.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's life affirming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really have in this experience, we're told that we come from this place of like lack and deficiency, and that there's something wrong with us, and that there's nothing that could be further from the truth. Like that is untrue. That is not who we are. And so like really what my programs are about, what my work is about is basically bringing people back to their fundamental nature. Like this is who you are. Really, it's about understanding our fundamental nature, and like what we've been told about it, it's just simply not true. And so it's so empowering though to know that like these things are in you. So it's like what I'm like showing people is it's like we might have this concept of like if someone is, so when the shoes that I was sitting in before, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, oh, like, I wouldn't, I mean, I might intellectually be like, okay, but I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't believe it. But it's like it's closer than you think because it's right in you. It's not about something that exists outside of you that you have to go get and become. It's about you tapping into what's already there and letting go of and really kind of stopping living from this place of like who you're not, which we tend to do. I like to say that's like we hid ourselves from ourselves, but we're still there.
Have you ever met or do you know of anyone whose fundamental nature isn't love? Or is everybody's fundamental nature love and they've just gotten so far away from it that they don't recognize themselves?
So my position would be it's everybody. There is this theory that there are some people who basically thrive on negativity
Mm.
and they actually get their energy that way. So it's not that they're bad. And so I would still say that there's still love. It's just they're structured in a certain way. And it's not very many people. And this isn't something that I've done a deep dive on because I haven't come across anybody like this. Not generally.
Often think of these people that get so off track. They're not really evil. They're just somehow off track. That's the way I see it.
I 100% agree. They're just not being in the truth of who they are. And if they were being in the truth of who they are, they'd have such a different experience. And like, listen, the experience that we're in, it's not an experience that is really perpetuating people being in the truth of who they are. It's doing quite the opposite in like a very, very strong way.
Yeah, it's pushing people towards achievement and money and status and all of these things that they think will bring them happiness.
Yeah. And that they think that they are. And
Yeah.
that's what makes them like I thought who I was, like what made me was me being an attorney. It was me like that's what made me. That's like who I was. Like I wasn't anything beyond that.
So
You know,
like what is our identity?
Yeah. And it's like nothing could be further from the truth. We're not here to become something. Like we are something and we're here to express who we are creatively and experience this experience as the unique beings that we are.
I like that a lot. We didn't come here to become something.
But we think so because we go to school and school tells us to achieve, go to college, do your thing, make some money, have a title, whatever the title is. And we think all of those things are our destiny.
Yeah.
And define us and are who we are. And they're so external focused. And this too is the thing too, like we spend so much time in school. I spent so much time in school. So many people spend so much time in school and we're so into like all these different degrees and how important they are. And I'm like, most people don't understand who they are and how they function. We don't know how to use our thoughts to create powerfully for us and to serve us. Like we're off in what we're focused on. And it's not that these other things aren't important or they're not interesting or we're not here to experience them. There is something off about that to me. Like that I could go through all this schooling and have all these degrees and not know who I am and not understand my mind and how it functions and not understand how to use my thoughts to serve me. And I do say like with my programs, I'm like, it's the education we never had, but should have, because I just think like taking time to know ourselves and understand ourselves, like that's where it's at really. And then once you do that, then you move forward into the world and you express yourself. And you know, when we express who we are, we benefit ourselves for sure, but we also benefit the world. It's almost like you can imagine like we're this piece of this puzzle and we're benefiting ourselves and being us, and we're benefiting like the world.
If somebody couldn't do your program and couldn't afford it or just didn't have the time or whatever, and you had one piece of something that you thought might change someone's life, what would it be?
I would say you hold within you great knowing, trust it, and follow it above all.
That's a great note to hold in your head and in your heart. Thank you. Is there anything that we didn't ask you or anything else that you want to impart to us that we haven't already talked about?
I don't think so. I think we talked about quite a bit today. This has been so much fun.
It has been fun.
Thank you so much, Kara.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Kara just dropped so many gems and mind-blowing bits of information.
What I really loved about the whole conversation is, in a way, it kind of reminded me of The Wizard of Oz, and you get to the end and the good witch, here we are with good and bad again,
Yeah.
but the witch that was helping her says, you held it within you all the time. You already knew all the answers.
It was already there.
It reminded me so much of that universal lesson that for whatever reason I tend to forget.
Well, and I think we all tend to forget it. And like Kara said, we become so distracted by everything else that we don't hear what's right inside of us. I love it.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.